You've been carrying them for years. What if you could set them down tonight? Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into a world where the air is soft, the night is gentle, and your mind can finally loosen its grip. We're going to wander through Zen stories and Buddhist teachings, but not the kind that feel heavy or complicated. These are the kind that land so quietly you barely notice until you realize something deep has shifted inside you. Imagine this, a little tea house in the mountains. The wooden walls smell faintly of cedar, and steam rises from a single clay kettle. Outside, a cool breeze rattles the bamboo leaves, but inside, the world is still. You're about to meet a monk and a man who thought he knew everything. And trust me, if you've ever been that person in an argument, you'll know how this feels. Without the tea part, of course, unless you argue with tea. Then, you might need more help than I can give tonight. You're going to hear a story that's been told for hundreds of years, but somehow it feels like it was made for you right now. You're not here to memorize it or analyze it or prove it to anyone. You're here to let it rest inside you like warm tea on a cold night. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you do, I'd love for you to drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The man arrived at the tea house certain of his knowledge, his head full of philosophies, scriptures, and debates. He had read so much, learned so much, that his mind buzzed constantly with the hum of information. The monk greeted him warmly, invited him to sit, and began to pour tea into the man's cup. Slowly, deliberately, the amber liquid rose to the brim, and then it spilled. Steam curled over the table, the tea running in little rivers down the wood. Still the monk kept pouring. "Stop. It's full, no more will go in," the man exclaimed. The monk set the kettle down, looking at him with eyes so calm they could have been carved from moonlight. "Like this cup," he said, "you are full of your own opinions and conclusions. How can I show you Zen unless you first empty your cup?" The room fell quiet. Somewhere outside, a bird gave a single sleepy chirp. Now you may take a deep breath. Let it out slowly. Feel the way your own thoughts swirl like leaves drifting in water. You don't have to spill them out all at once. Just notice that your cup is already full. And maybe, just maybe, you could leave a little space tonight. The night deepens and the air feels cooler now, like it's wrapped in a soft blue shawl. You're still sitting in that quiet tea house, but the steam from your cup has thinned, curling in lazy ribbons toward the rafters. Outside, the bamboo leans in as though it's trying to listen, as if it knows what comes next. The monk leans back slightly, his eyes warm, and says, "I have another thing for you to carry home." His voice is low, so soft you almost have to lean forward to hear. "Tell me, what is the sound of one hand clapping?" You blink. Surely you misheard. The question drops into the silence like a pebble into a still pond. No splash, just slow ripples. One hand clapping, your mind immediately jumps to answers. Maybe it's the brush of fingers against a palm. Maybe it's symbolic. Maybe it's some sort of ancient poetic code you're supposed to decode before the kettle boils again. And yet, the more you think, the stranger it becomes. Your thoughts start tangling with themselves, looping back, chasing their own tails. You open your mouth to speak, but the monk only smiles. "I'll give you all night," he says, as if it were the most generous gift in the world. You walk outside into the moonlight. The path crunches under your feet, and the air smells faintly of pine and cool stone. The question hums in your mind like a small bell that never stops ringing. You try clapping with one hand, ridiculous. You try imagining it, confusing. You try dismissing it, impossible. Somewhere along the path, you realize something strange. You're not thinking about work, or what you said earlier today, or the to-do list that usually camps in the back of your skull like an unwanted tenant. All you're thinking about is nothing. And somehow, that feels like everything. The night wraps around you like a blanket you didn't know you needed. The sound of your footsteps blends with the distant rustle of leaves, and you wonder if perhaps the point wasn't to find the answer, but to notice the quiet space the question left behind. The moon looks enormous tonight, like it's leaning close just to see what you'll do next. You pause, inhale deeply, and hear the wind brushing past your ear. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's the sound of one hand clapping. Or maybe it doesn't matter at all. The clouds have gathered while you were walking, thick and heavy, like an old quilt draped across the sky. There's a scent in the air now. Damp earth, cool stone, and something green that reminds you of early spring. You tilt your head, and there it is, the first drop. It lands so softly, you almost wonder if you imagined it. Then another, and another. Soon the sound grows a gentle patter that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. You make your way back toward the tea house, but the monk meets you halfway on the path. He holds no umbrella, no hood, just lets the rain soak into his simple robes. His smile is small, as if he knows a secret and has no intention of telling it. "Listen," he says, "that's all." You stand there, the rain settling into its rhythm on the leaves above the stones beneath the bamboo. To your left, the moss to your right. It's not the kind of rain that rushes. It's not trying to be dramatic. It's the kind that feels like it could go on forever and you wouldn't mind at all. You start to notice layers in the sound. The hollow tapping on the wooden bridge nearby. The sharp notes on the tin kettle left outside the soft hiss where drops land in the grass. There's even a bass note somewhere far off, the muted thud of rain on a heavy log. Without realizing, your shoulders drop. Your jaw unclenches. You're breathing in time with the rain now. The monk doesn't say anything more, and neither do you. The rain is speaking, if you can call it speaking at all. You remember the empty cup, the strange question about one hand clapping. And now, this. No lesson, no lecture. Just rain. It occurs to you that maybe Zen isn't something you go looking for. Maybe it's been waiting here all along, in the sound of water meeting the earth. The path back to the tea house is slick now, shining under the dim lanterns. You walk slowly, letting your sandals splash just enough to feel like a child again. When you reach the doorway, the monk gestures for you to enter first. You notice the rain against the roof, steady and sure like a drum that's been keeping time since before you were born. Inside, the kettle is warm again. But for now, you don't reach for tea. You just listen. And the rain listens back. The rain lingers through the night, softer now, like it's breathing with you. By morning, the world smells washed clean. The clouds have thinned into pale ribbons, letting shafts of sunlight drift lazily down the mountainside. You sit on the wooden porch of the tea house, cradling a warm cup between your palms. That's when you see him, your teacher, walking slowly along the stone path. He isn't hurrying. He isn't late. He simply moves the way a cloud moves, without effort, without resistance. He stops to speak with a villager who's carrying a heavy basket. She looks tired, frustrated, maybe even a little angry. Her words tumble out in quick bursts you can't quite hear from this distance. But you can see her shoulders tighten. Her hands grip the basket harder. The monk just listens. And when she's done, he smiles. It's not a smile that tries to fix her problem. Not the kind that says, cheer up. It's the kind of smile that feels like a window opening on a stuffy day. Gentle, light, warm enough to let the air change. Something shifts in the woman's face. Her eyes soften. Her shoulders drop. She takes a breath she didn't realize she was holding, and for a moment the weight of the basket seems less. The monk bows to her, steps aside, and continues on his way. Later, when you ask him about it, he doesn't give you a teaching. He doesn't quote scripture. He just says, smiles cost nothing and they fit every face. You think about how often your own smile waits for a reason, good news, a joke, a perfect photograph. And yet, here was a smile given with no transaction, no condition, just offered. The porch is warm under you. Somewhere in the distance, a bird calls once, then again. The monk sits beside you without a word, his robe brushing lightly against your sleeve. You both watch the morning unfold, a cat stretching in the sun, steam curling from the kettle, drops of rain slipping from the eaves one by one. It occurs to you that maybe peace doesn't always come from solving things. Sometimes it comes from seeing them exactly as they are and smiling anyway. The moment stretches quiet and whole. And then, almost without thinking, you smile too. It happens in the simplest way. No lightning, no thunder, just a small ordinary sound crack. You're in the tea house again, helping the monk arrange cups for the morning guests. The light is still soft gold spilling in through the paper screens. Your hands are steady until they aren't. One slip. A teacup tumbles. Porcelain meets wood. It doesn't shatter into 100 pieces the way you'd expect. Just a single thin fracture running like a river from rim to base. Still you freeze. I'm sorry, you say, quickly lifting it to inspect the damage. The crack looks sharp, final. I'll fix it. Or replace it. The monk glances up from the kettle. Why you hesitate? Because it's broken. He takes the cup from your hands, turning it slowly in the light. And before it was broken, it was whole. You nod, unsure. He smiles, setting it down carefully on the table. It's still whole, just differently. You don't know if he's teasing you or giving you something profound. But then he says, this is its life now. One moment it was unbroken. The next, it wasn't. Both are true. Neither lasts. The room falls quiet, except for the kettle's gentle hiss. You notice the way steam curls and disappears, how the sunlight shifts just enough to change the shade of the tatami mats, how your own breath comes and goes without asking your permission. The monk pours tea into the cracked cup. Some part of you tenses, expecting the liquid to leak, but it doesn't. The tea just sits there, warm and fragrant. The cup holds it as easily as before. See, he says, still a cup, still useful, just more honest now. You hold the cup in your hands, feeling the tiny ridge where the crack runs. It's almost beautiful, like a map of something it survived. Outside, the breeze stirs the bamboo, and you think about the things in your own life you've called broken. How quick you've been to hide them, fix them, erase them. But maybe some things don't need erasing. Maybe they just need to be seen. The monk takes a sip, sighs in quiet satisfaction, and hands the cup to you. Careful, he says, it's perfect. The road is narrow, stitched between green hills that roll like waves frozen mid-motion. Morning mist clings low to the ground, curling around the ankles of the monk. Walking ahead of you, he carries nothing but a small cloth bundle and a walking stick worn smooth by years of use. You've decided to join him just for a while, though he never asked. You thought maybe there'd be conversation or some new lesson to collect like a coin. But the monk walks in silence, his sandals whispering against the dirt, the rhythm steady and unhurried. At first, you match his pace easily. Then, without realizing it, you begin to speed up. Your mind is already several steps ahead, wondering where the path leads, how far it is, whether you'll make it before the sun climbs high. That's when you notice the monk is still behind you. You stop waiting for him to catch up. Aren't you going somewhere, you ask? He tilts his head as if you've just asked whether water is wet. I am already there, he says, then keeps walking at the same unhurried pace. It doesn't make sense. And yet, it does. You fall back into step beside him. The sound of your breathing begins to blend with his. The crunch of pebbles underfoot becomes a soft metronome, a heartbeat outside your body. You notice the smell of the wet grass, the way the mist beads on spider webs, the hush of the world when no one is trying to fill it with noise. Hours pass without a single "Are we there yet?" or "How much farther?" Just this step, breath, step, breath. Eventually the path widens, opening into a small clearing where wildflowers scatter like stars dropped onto the earth. The monk stops. Not because you've arrived, but because this is where his feet decided to stop. He sits on a flat rock, pulls an orange from his bundle and begins to peel it. The scent bursts into the air, bright, sweet, impossible to ignore. He hands you a segment without looking at you. You take it. The juice runs over your tongue, and for a moment, it's as if this is the first orange you've ever tasted. The monk leans back, eyes half closed, letting the sun touch his face. When you walk, he says, walk. When you eat, eat. When you rest, you don't need him to finish. You already know. A breeze stirs the flowers. Somewhere far off, a bird sings 3 notes, then falls silent. You close your eyes, letting the warmth sink in. Maybe the journey isn't a road to somewhere else. Maybe it's the road itself. By late afternoon, the path narrows again. This time, disappearing into a stand of bamboo so tall it seems to stitch the sky to the earth. The air changes as you step inside, cooler shaded, carrying a faint scent of green that's hard to name, but instantly calming. The monk walks ahead without speaking. You notice how the stalks sway even in the gentlest breeze, their tops whispering secrets to each other high above your head. The sound is unlike anything else, soft, hollow, a mixture of sigh and song. At first you hear it as background noise, something pleasant but unimportant. Then you realize it's not the wind you're listening to, it's the bamboo responding to it. Without the wind, there would be no sound at all. The monk stops, places a hand lightly against one of the stalks. It bends under his touch, but doesn't break. Strong, he says simply. Then, because it knows how to bow, you stand there letting his words settle like dust in a sunbeam. You think of all the times you've tried to be rigid, unbending, thinking that was strength. And you wonder how many storms would have passed more gently if you'd allowed yourself to sway. The wind picks up a little, and the grove begins to sing a chorus of shifting tones, some high, some low, all blending together without a single note competing for attention. It's not harmony in the polished human sense. It's harmony because nothing here is trying to be anything other than what it is. The monk closes his eyes, breathing in the sound. You do the same, and for a moment you can't tell where your breath ends and the wind begins. The sun is lowering now, and the light through the bamboo turns the air gold green, as if the grove itself is glowing from within. You walk on slower this time, feeling the ground beneath your feet, the rhythm of your steps syncing with the sway of the stalks. Somewhere deep inside, a tightness you didn't know you were carrying begins to loosen. By the time you reach the edge of the grove, the wind has calmed, but the memory of its song stays with you like a gentle reminder, whispered directly into your bones. Bend and you will not break. The bamboo grove fades behind you, and the path curls back toward the mountainside where the air feels thinner, lighter. Evening has begun. Its slow descent painting the sky in strokes of lavender and pale gold. You follow the monk into a small stone temple, its wooden doors open to the breeze. Inside, a single candle flickers in the corner, its flame steady despite the open air. The floor smells faintly of sandalwood and old paper. A young man is already there kneeling before the monk's cushion. His head is bowed, but his voice trembles with urgency. "Master," he says, "why can't I forget them?" The words hang in the air like incense smoke, curling but not dispersing. You feel the ache behind them, the way the past can cling like damp clothes, heavy and hard to peel away. The monk lowers himself onto the cushion. He doesn't speak. He doesn't move. The young man waits. A minute passes, then another. The silence grows so full it's almost a sound in itself. You shift slightly, the wood creaking beneath you, but the monk remains as still as the stone walls. The young man tries again. "Please, tell me what to do." Nothing. The candle pops softly, a bead of wax rolling down its side. Outside, the wind moves the paper screen with a faint sigh. The young man's breathing quickens, then slows, then quickens again. You can feel the tug of war inside him, wanting an answer, fearing there isn't one. Finally, something shifts. His shoulders sink. His head lowers not in defeat, but in release. The monk still hasn't spoken, and somehow you understand. Some answers are not meant to be given in words. Some knots are untied not by pulling, but by letting the rope rest until it loosens on its own. The young man bows deeply, a movement that feels more like acceptance than resignation. Then he leaves his footsteps, barely whispering against the floor. You and the monk remain in the temple, the silence now soft instead of heavy. The candle burns low. The monk turns to you and with the faintest of smiles says, "When the question falls away, what's left?" You have no reply. And that feels enough. The night air greets you as you step out of the temple, cool enough to raise the tiny hairs along your arms. The moon has risen, a pale, watchful lantern in the sky, casting long silver shadows over the path. The monk leads you away from the village toward a hillside where a wooden gate stands alone. There are no walls, no fence, just the gate weathered by time, its frame leaning ever so slightly to one side. You stop in front of it, waiting for the explanation you assume is coming. This, the monk says, is the gate without a gate. You glance at the empty space around it. But there's nothing here to keep anyone out. Exactly, he replies. He gestures for you to walk through. You do, feeling faintly ridiculous, like a child humoring a strange game. The ground feels no different on the other side. The monk joins you. Many think there's something to pass through before they can be free. They wait for the gate to open, not seeing it was never closed. You turn to look at the frame again. The moonlight paints its wood in shades of silver and shadow. It looks both solid and absurd, meaningful and meaningless all at once. How do you know when you've gone through it, you ask. He tilts his head. When you stop looking back to check. You stand there, the silence stretching, the sound of crickets folding into the night air. You try stepping back, through then forward again. Nothing changes except maybe your awareness that nothing changes. The monk smiles faintly as if he can see the wheels turning in your head. Zen is not the gate, he says. Zen is seeing. There is no gate. The two of you linger a while longer. The breeze moves through the grass, brushing against your ankles like a stray cat. Somewhere far down the slope, you can hear the faint trickle of water. You think of all the invisible gates you've stood before in your life. Times you told yourself you weren't ready, not allowed, not yet. Times you waited for a permission that was never needed. The moon climbs higher. The monk starts walking away from the gate without looking back. This time you follow, without hesitation. The moonlight follows you down a narrow path, painting the stones in silver. The night is quiet, except for the soft crunch of your footsteps and the steady rhythm of the monk's breath. You reach a small wooden bridge crossing a shallow stream. Standing at the edge is a woman in a heavy kimono, her sandals dangling from one hand. She stares at the water hesitant. The boards of the bridge are slick with moss, and the current below glitters faintly in the moonlight. Without a word, the monk steps forward, kneels, and gestures for her to climb onto his back. She hesitates, surprised, but accepts. He carries her across his footing, sure and slow. On the other side, she thanks him with a bow, her voice barely above a whisper, and disappears into the night. You walk on together in silence for nearly an hour, the sound of the stream fading behind you. Finally, unable to hold it in, you say, "We are monks. Aren't we supposed to avoid that kind of contact with women?" The monk doesn't break stride. "I set her down an hour ago," he says. "Why are you still carrying her?" The words hit harder than you expect. You think of the arguments you've replayed in your mind long after they ended, the regrets you've nursed like fragile things that couldn't survive without your constant attention. The night air feels cooler now, cleaner somehow, as if the path itself has let go of something. The monk continues forward, his back straight, his steps light, as though the stream and the woman and the weight she carried have already been washed away. You try to imagine setting down what you've been carrying. Names, faces, old moments heavy with schuld, and if only. For a second you feel the strange lightness of walking without them. The path bends toward a grove of pine trees, their shadows long and sharp in the moonlight. The scent of resin drifts through the air, and you wonder what would it feel like to put something down and never pick it back up again. Morning returns quietly, as though the world has agreed to speak in a softer voice today. Mist clings to the edges of the tea house roof, and the scent of damp wood lingers in the air. Inside, the monk is arranging the tea utensils with a precision that feels almost ceremonial. Every movement is slow, deliberate, and strangely captivating. He doesn't rush to boil the water. He doesn't fumble for the cups. He simply moves as though time has agreed to follow his pace. You sit nearby watching. At first you think he's just making tea. Then you notice he's not just making tea. He's being with the tea. He sets the kettle on the small brazier, and you hear the faint tick of metal adjusting to the heat. He folds a white cloth, smoothing it 3 times with the edge of his hand. Each action is complete before the next begins. No wasted motion, no sudden shifts. The steam begins to rise, curling upward like a slow dance. The monk scoops the tea powder into the bowl, his hand steady, his breathing even. When he pours the hot water, the sound is like a tiny waterfall, steady, soothing, self-contained. You find yourself leaning forward without realizing it. Your thoughts, usually quick to scatter, stay put, anchored by the quiet rhythm of his movements. When the whisk meets the tea, it makes a soft, frothy whisper. The monk doesn't look at you, but you can tell he's fully aware you're here. Not in a way that performs for you, but in a way that includes you in what's unfolding. Finally, he places the cup in front of you. "Drink," he says. The first sip is warm and grassy, the kind of flavor that doesn't shout but lingers. You taste the water, the leaves, and somehow the stillness itself. This is how you do everything the monk says after a while. Not by rushing to finish, but by giving each moment the dignity of being complete. Outside, a bird hops along the porch rail, tilting its head at you. You almost laugh. It looks like it's been watching the whole ceremony too. You set the cup down carefully, the last of the steam rising into the morning air. And for a moment, you're not thinking about yesterday or tomorrow. Only this. The day stretches into a gentle afternoon, sunlight pooling lazily across the courtyard stones. The monk leads you to a small market in the village below, where the air smells of fresh bread, ripening fruit, and the faint tang of soy sauce from a food stall. You hear laughter before you see its source, rich, round, and impossible to ignore. Turning a corner, you find him, a rotund man in worn robes, sitting cross-legged on a mat. His belly shakes with every chuckle, his eyes almost lost in the folds of his smiling face. Children gather around him, giggling, as he tells some story you can't quite catch over the noise of the crowd. Every so often, he slaps his knee and lets out another booming laugh, and the sound ripples through the market like sunlight breaking through clouds. The monk greets him with a bow. "Hotai," he says softly. The man waves you both closer. Sit. I've been saving the best part for you." "You do?" And he continues his tale, something about a farmer, a runaway goat, and a basket of peaches. It's silly, almost absurd, but his joy is so contagious that you find yourself laughing before you even understand the punchline. After a while, the children scatter, pulled away by errands and parents. The market hums on, but here in this small circle of shade, the laughter lingers. You ask him, "How do you laugh like that? Even when life isn't easy?" Hote grins. But life isn't easy. That's why I laugh." He picks up a small cloth bag and shakes it lightly. You expect coins or trinkets, but he pours out candies instead, handing them to passing strangers without looking to see if they're grateful. When there is pain, he says, "I laugh, so it doesn't decide who I am. When there is joy, I laugh, so I remember to share it." He pops a candy into his own mouth and winks. Besides, if I don't laugh, my belly will forget its job. The monk smiles quietly beside you as if this meeting was always part of today's lesson. When you leave, the sound of Hotei's laughter follows you down the street, a warm echo that seems to make the afternoon air lighter. You realize something then, that joy isn't the absence of suffering. It's the space you create so suffering doesn't fill the whole room. And sometimes, that space is the shape of a laugh. By the time you leave the village, the sun has started its slow descent, brushing the sky with strokes of copper and rose. The path winds upward again into the cooler air of the hillside. You notice the scent before you see it, sharp, clean, resinous. The monk leads you to a clearing where an old pine tree stands alone. Its trunk is thick and twisted, the bark furrowed like the lines on an ancient face. The lowest branches droop with age, but the top still reaches high into the fading light. He settles down at the base of the tree, leaning back as though greeting an old friend. You do the same feeling, the rough bark press into your spine. For a while, nothing happens. The wind moves gently through the needles, making a sound like the faint hiss of waves on a far-off shore. The air tastes cool, almost metallic, and each breath seems to settle deeper into your chest. This tree has been here longer than I have been alive, the monk says quietly. It has seen storms split the mountain, and yet it still stands. Do you think it remembers each one? You glance up at the gnarled branches, some scarred, some broken, yet all alive. I suppose. No. He says, closing his eyes. It remembers what matters, and lets the rest become the ground beneath it. A pine cone drops nearby with a muted thud. You watch it roll to a stop, its scales tightly closed, waiting for the right season to open. The monk smiles faintly, as if even this is part of the lesson. You let your own memories drift, faces, words, moments that have clung like burrs to your thoughts. Some feel heavier than others. But here in the quiet shadow of the old pine, they seem smaller, less sharp. The wind picks up, and the tree's long needles sway, whispering to each other in a language you'll never fully understand. Still, you feel the meaning in your bones. The monk opens his eyes, tilts his head back, and takes a slow breath. When you've lived long enough, he says, you stop counting the storms, you just grow. The light fades into a blue that feels endless. You rest your head against the trunk, listening to the steady voice of the pine, and think, maybe that's what you've been trying to learn all along. Night has returned, carrying with it a cooler wind that slides through the cracks of the tea house walls. The monk lights a single candle and places it between you on the low wooden table. The flame rises steadily, its glow warm against the shadows creeping in from the corners of the room. The wind slips inside in small, playful drafts, just enough to make the flame bend, but it does not go out. You watch it sway and recover, sway and recover. Each time it leans away from the center, it finds its way back, without rushing. The monk sits silently, his gaze fixed on the candle. You mirror him, breathing in the slow rhythm of the light. Most people think peace means no wind, he says softly. But the wind will always come. Another draft curls through the doorway, tugging at the flame until it bows low. Still, it returns, straightening itself with quiet dignity. Peace, he continues, is the flame that does not forget its center. The words settle into you like warm tea. You think about your own life, the interruptions, the storms, the voices that pull at your focus until you're sure you've lost it. And yet, here you are, still burning. The candle flickers again, casting shifting shapes on the walls. The shadows move like dancers bending without breaking. You realize the wind is not the enemy here. It's the thing that makes the flame's steadiness visible. For a long time, neither of you speaks. The world outside hums faintly, crickets in the grass, a distant dog barking, the soft groan of wood adjusting to the night's coolness. The monk finally leans back, his eyes reflecting the candle's light. The wind will not stop, but neither will you. You sit with that thought until the flame grows smaller, melting into a small pool of golden wax. Outside, the wind moves on to other doorways, other candles. Inside, yours is still burning. The candle burns, lowers its light, softening into a gentle amber glow. Outside, the wind has quieted, leaving only the faint hum of night insects and the slow creak of the tea house settling into itself. The monk pours you one last cup of tea, the steam rising like a pale ribbon into the cool air. You cradle it in both hands, feeling the warmth seep into your palms. The tea is simple, almost delicate. No strong flavors, nothing to demand your attention. Just enough to remind you that you're here now, breathing. The monk doesn't speak. He doesn't need to. The night itself has become the teaching. You notice the absence of tension in your shoulders, the way your jaw rests without clenching. Your thoughts move slower now, like leaves drifting along a quiet stream. There's no rush to follow them, no need to hold on. Somewhere in the distance, a night bird calls once, then lets the silence return. The world feels vast yet safe, as if the darkness is holding you rather than hiding you. The monk places his cup down and looks at you for a long moment. His eyes are neither heavy with meaning nor empty. They're simply present. You can sleep without fear, he says, when you stop keeping watch over what no longer needs guarding. The words settle into you, sinking past thought, into something deeper, something that will still be there when you wake. You lie back on the tatami mat, the scent of straw and wood wrapping around you. The ceiling beams fade into shadow, the candles glow, softening until it's just a memory on your eyelids. Your breathing slows. Your body feels heavier, but in a way that's welcome, like the earth is willing to hold you for a while. The monk's voice comes one last time, barely more than a whisper. Rest now. The night will take care of itself. The world blurs, edges fade, time loosens, and somewhere between one breath and the next, you let go. At the heart of this journey through Zen stories and Buddhist teachings lies a quiet but powerful truth. Peace does not come from controlling life, but from learning to meet it exactly as it is. The empty cup reminds us that wisdom can only enter when we make space for it. The sound of one hand clapping shows us that not every question needs an answer. Some are simply gateways to stillness. The rain, the bamboo, the old pine, and even a cracked teacup all whisper the same message. Nothing stays the same, and that's not something to fear. Strength is not found in resisting change, but in moving with it, like bamboo bending in the wind, or a candle holding its center no matter which way the breeze turns. For those of us carrying the weight of decades, memories, regrets, expectations, these stories offer more than abstract philosophy. They are gentle reminders that we can set things down without losing who we are. That joy can exist even in the presence of pain, and that rest is not a reward we earn, but a gift we allow ourselves. The gate without a gate teaches us that many of the barriers we feel are only in our minds. The path is open if we're willing to walk it. If these words have stirred something in you, carry it with you into tomorrow. Practice. Emptying your cup, smiling without reason, and noticing the small, steady flame within you. And if this journey has brought you comfort tonight, I invite you to return to listen again and to share it with someone who might need it. May your night be calm, your heart light, and your dreams gentle. Sleep well. Tomorrow night, we'll walk another path. Different steps, different stories, yet the same quiet, waiting at the end. I'll meet you in Zen stories and Buddhist teachings to help you sleep soundly and wake up joyful. Until then, sleep well. End of script. Sweet dreams.